Heather Griffith-Jones reporting there. Now, after hearing from the Prime Minister and Labour leader about their latest views on Brexit, this week Plaid Cymru has a debate in the Commons on the issue. It will use the debate to make the argument for UK citizens being able to retain EU citizenship after Brexit. But how could that work? Well, the party's economy spokesman Adam Price is here with me now to try and explain, I hope.
Morning.
Here's your shot. How would that work?
Well, there's a legal dimension to this, and I suppose there's a more personal aspect to it. I mean, legally, it is a fact that people of Wales and people of the rest of the United Kingdom are EU citizens currently, and that has conferred, important, valuable rights upon them. The ability to work and to study in Europe, and indeed to enjoy free healthcare, and that will continue after Brexit as well, because of EU law and also international law.
There'll be a transition period, and it's unclear what will happen after that. But once
there is a more personal aspect as well, because people like me. We'll all answer this question differently, but people like me feel passionately European, and to a certain extent, my Welshness and my Europeanness are intimately interconnected.
Sure.
We come from a civilization of Celts that were known as the fathers of Europe. We were founded, according to legend, weren't we, by a Galician who became Roman emperor.
Let's bring it forward a few centuries then to where we are now.
Yeah.
And how would it work? This is what I want to know: is retaining European citizenship if you're a UK citizen after Brexit. Once the UK has left, what does that mean, and how will that work?
Well, it means that everyone that was a EU citizen before the time of exit will continue to enjoy those rights. So that right within the EU.
Freedom of movement, then.
Yes, within the EU, and also freedom of free healthcare as well, which is important in terms of travel and working and studying. There is the question of what should happen, whether there should be the right of associate citizenship as well, which would be a matter for discussion after that. But I think it's accepted by most legal observers into the Treaty of Lisbon that you can't remove from an individual the right of citizenship.
But then would you also expect and accept that European citizens would then be free to travel to the UK as well?
That's a different question. That's about reciprocity. I mean, the fact is that...
But it's essential, isn't it? Because presumably the European Union, the Commission, would have to agree to this. They're not going to say UK can do whatever you want, unless EU citizens can have the same thing.
That's a different aspect. I mean, Guy Verhofstadt, for example, who's a key player in the European Parliament in terms of the negotiations, accepts the argument that actually everyone in the UK currently is a EU citizen, and that means that they have, as individuals, rights that will continue. In the same way that actually, if you want to look back at other examples in international law, in the Irish Free State, for example, in the Irish Republic, the citizens of the Irish Free State continue to have rights within the UK, and indeed Irish Republic citizens also.
Saying that but what about in future, if young people want to go and who aren't yet born, want to go and study in the EU, travel in the EU, they wouldn't have the same rights as their parents then?
No, absolutely. And this is where the issue then of the possibility of associate citizenship, that would have to be a matter of negotiation, because that won't exist as a legal right, but it could exist as a future option for those, as you say, that aren't currently
But surely citizens. Then, if you want that enhanced, rights for future generations, let's say, to travel within the EU will want something back there. The Commission will say, well, if you want to come and be able to have the free healthcare in the European Union, free travel in the European Union, our citizens have to have the same thing in the UK.
I can see that argument in terms of reciprocity. But
is that something that voters in the UK would accept, given that we have voted as the UK to leave the European Union?
Well, the option of a reciprocal associate citizenship model, of course, is something that could be up for consideration. I mean, I think that the key point is that rights that are there in law for current EU citizens cannot be taken away. They're important and valuable rights that need to be protected.
But then what about the future? I mean, you'll know one of the reasons that the UK voted to leave the European Union was because of free movement, was because of immigration. It seems to me what you're proposing here doesn't really get to grips with the problems that threw up.
Well, I think that the issue of migration, I think, was largely to do, right, in terms of the politics of it, was a feeling of economic distress in communities that have been neglected for generations. And I think that the responsibility for that largely lies with a political establishment that has not invested sufficiently in those communities.
But what's the answer then? Because people voted to leave. Immigration was an issue.
Yeah.
You seem to be saying there'll be no change almost on immigration in future. That's not what people voted for. That's my point.
The solution to the economic distress, right, the communities like my own felt, that expressed itself in part in that Brexit vote, doesn't lie with the issue of migration. It lies with economic justice, right?
So they were wrong. I mean, people were wrong to be worried about immigration. It seems to me you're ignoring almost the will of the people who voted because of their concerns on immigration.
Absolutely not. People voted for Brexit for a variety of reasons, but I think you're right. They did vote because of reasons of economic distress that some of them associated with migration policy, right? But the answer to that economic distress is economic justice, right? It's conservative Westminster governments that have actually, and Labour governments that haven't invested in our communities, right? That's the answer to that problem. And the answer there is to actually take back control, to coin a phrase, right? We have a Westminster government now that is engaging in a power grab. It was talking about sovereignty, right, of the UK, and is now actually taking back sovereignty from Wales so that we can actually address the economic problems that we faced for generations.
I mean, you're talking here about the now EU withdrawal bill, which is a slightly different issue, and the UK government saying, well, actually, there will be more powers coming to Wales after Brexit. Welsh government, and clearly you don't believe that. But the point I want to come back to is on things like freedom of movement, on a customs union. If you had the freedom of movement, I guess it would then make it easier to remain in the customs union, to remain in the single market, if that was what you wanted to do. Is that what this is part of here?
Look, I mean, the key issue for Wales at the moment is that we are being shafted. We've been shafted politically for generations. In fact, you could say for centuries, going back into the mists of time. We are being shafted again, and we have to wake up and demand a future for our nation.
But okay, and that's the historical side of it. But what about future and what will happen next? Look, is that what you're aiming for now?
We're moving from a European common market to a UK common market, right? And we all accept the need for common rules, but what we're currently being offered is a system where the English Parliament, that's what Westminster is.
What do you want to see? This is what I want. What do you want to see? That's what I want. That's what I'm asking.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We need to have a UK common market where each of the four nations has an equal voice, has an equal decision-making power. Instead of that, what we are being given is a system where England will have a supermajority through a Westminster Parliament that's dominated by 80% of English.
What does Plaid want to see?
We want to see a UK Council of Ministers, as set out in the White Paper, where each of the four nations has an equal voice, so that the UK common market is a common market of four nations, not just one.
You're perfectly timed. Thank you very much for your time this morning. That's it for this week. Don't forget about Wales Live on Wednesday night at 10:30, and you can also follow all the latest on Twitter. We're at Wales Politics. But for now, that's all from me. Diolch am wylio. Thanks for watching. Time to go back to Sarah.